How funny would it be if, as you drive your super truck off a mountaintop,
while water music a la hornpipe is playing, you know?
right? And that's Horizon. Like,
welcome to the Audio Files, episode 6. I'm Malik.
and I'm Alex. Sometimes I go by Knox.
And we are really excited to talk to you today about Forza Horizon 5. Or is it Forza Horizon 5?
Forza?
Forza? I mean, if it's Italian pronunciation, it would be Forza. Because the
sounds more sophisticated to say Forza.
Yeah, it does. And I think you need the double Z for Forza, like pizza or piazza.
Forza, 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 Forza Horizon 5.
You know, don't they use that aria in the Spider-Man game?
Yes, they do in the pizza delivery levels.
The pizza delivery levels, yeah. I hate to say and I hate to admit it, but classical music is funny under most circumstances. Oh, Dad, don't kill me, then throw me in the river. Yeah, please enjoy episode 6, Forza Horizon 5, Zero Dawn. So, welcome back, everyone.
We are in episode
6
of the Audio Files podcast.
Yeah, what game are we talking about today?
Today we are jumping into Forza Horizon 5.
We've been talking about this one since the beginning of the channel.
When we were originally thinking of the Audio Files, there's so much to video game music. There's so many different ways that music exists in a game and ways that music gets into a game. And a lot of times it's score, which is mostly what we've been talking about so far, but also music licensing. Licensed music is a huge thing.
So many genres of games focus their entire soundtrack on licensed music.
It's interesting that those games that tend to have more licensed soundtracks, tend to be games like racing games. Great example of that, Forza Horizon 5. Let's get the regular context out of the way. Developed by Playground Games, and this was published by Xbox Game Studio, released in 2021. Published by Xbox, notable that this is our first party game. It's an Xbox exclusive game. Something about the licensing nature of this game, whereas normally we would credit the composer of the game, here we need to give our credit to the music supervisors of this game.
We could give credit to the composers, all like 612 of them. Instead, we're going to give credit to the music supervising team.
So just a bit of context, music supervision is the field of picking music for a media property, such as a film or a video game, and then actually doing the business process of licensing it and taking care of all the contracts. So that's all a music supervisor does. And in this case, Forza Horizon 5, the music supervision team was led by a man named Kyle Hopkins. Another music supervisor was Maya Halfa Cordova and Ana Garcia Lascurain. I hope I got some of those names.
They had like 4 or 5 people working on lyric selection, like making sure that, I guess, not only are they appropriate for the audience, but appropriate for the style.
I mean, that's my best guess.
They had like 2 contract specialists.
Right. I love that they have 2 people because there's so many songs in this game and they all have to be licensed. So you have to have 2 people that are just devoted to just looking over the nuts and bolts of the contracts and making sure that it all makes sense for all the parties involved.
And it's not just picking music and giving a boilerplate contract too, because like the nature of who they're signing and how is different. And that's one of the most exciting things that I want to talk about with you, is because when we were going through the radio stations for the game, we noticed that there were 7 or 8 channels, and 5 or 6 of them were genre specific. 2 of them or 3 of them were not. It's so easy to say that the soundtrack, the score, is the most important part of the game, or that it's a really important part of the game, but we mean that differently when we talk about this game. It's not important in the way that, the game wouldn't be the same without it. It's like half of the gameplay, because half of the experience is the variety of music you're listening to. We were talking about how, no offense to racing games, I love racing games, but the gameplay is the same from start to finish. There's no dungeons here, village here, boss battle here. They're going for high energy, but it's really important to point out, like a FIFA game, they're going for cool, they're going for young, they're going for hip, because I guess racing games are advertised towards a younger audience. That's what it sounds like to me.
Because it's a festival, there's going to be music. So it honestly, a lot of the soundtrack sounds like a music festival because it literally is trying to recreate the feeling of being at a music festival.
Yeah, like the car festival hired these artists, and that's how cool the car festival is, that they got Dua Lipa and Beck. Because like you could just say, big drum beats, fast tempos, keep it between like 130 and 180. But the actual structure of the songs that were selected, instead of just verse, chorus, they put like a verse, and then a pre-chorus, and then a chorus, and a refrain to spread out the gradual escalation of energy in the song. The reason they did that, if you ask me, is to kind of get a homogeneous sound as far as the tone is concerned in the song. So the song doesn't have loud moments, quiet moments, loud moments, quiet moments. Every song is going to have loud moments and quiet moments, but if you take longer between getting to one to the other, and it's a more gradual pace from loud to soft, you don't jar your listener so much.
Because if I'm in a race, if I'm driving a car at 150 miles an hour down a dirt track, then there's no break in the energy there. It is always intense.
It would break your mental momentum to have music change tone on a dime, especially because every 2 or 3 minutes the tone is changing on a dime. You have to stop the music and start a new song, even if it's just a fade in, fade out.
Each song was picked for a very particular vibe that it brought, that it added to each individual station.
When I was listening, there was some level of sophistication in every song that I listened to, with few exceptions, but for the most part, it had a sophisticated melody structure. Or if it didn't have that, then it had a really interesting drum beat underneath. And if it didn't have any of those, then it had a really unique production style. And if it didn't have any of that, then the voice was really like cleverly coached. And not so much to get the listener to be like, ooh, what a fascinating melody, but simply because every song needed to have some level of richness, intricacy, and sophistication to keep that energy level high.
So let's get into talking about some of those individual stations. So of all of the stations, there's EDM, there's pop, there's rock, there's alternative, there's deep house, and then there's classical, which totally stands out because it's the only one where there's not constant high energy all the time. There's a bit of relaxed music. It's a bit more laid back.
Yeah, I really wonder why they added it, because in my guess, it can't be for like classical music enthusiasts, because they didn't really put a long playlist in there. And it's not like it would have been expensive too, because those recordings are cheap, man. Was it like for humor?
I think that's exactly what it is. And that was going to be my point in bringing this up. That's a classic music supervisor trick to create a moment of levity and humor and self-aware goofiness. And that perfectly fits the tone that this game is going for. That self-aware, funny, kind of like we're not taking anything too serious. It's very playful. And how funny would it be if, as you drive your super truck off a mountaintop,
while water music a la hornpipe is playing,
Right. And that's Horizon. Like it's a bit silly. It's an open world racing game where you're going around choosing what activities you're going to do. And that means you need to curate your own music experience more. And giving you a couple of different stations to play through gives the player control over what kind of experience they want to have. If you're somebody who's playing this game because you love supercars and you're a racing enthusiast, then you may not even play with music on. And if you do, you might play with like some deep house or like some very hypnotic music that's very repetitive. If you're like me and you're just trying to play the game for pure fun, then you put on the classical station because it's a bit silly.
It's been a long time since I played the new Burnout games, but the old Burnout games that I still bust out on the regular, they don't really have radio stations. They just kind of play a playlist. Not ubiquitous amongst all racing games. There are racing games without it.
And that's actually a really interesting point. In those racing games that don't have radio stations, it's probably either a racing sim where it's taking itself very seriously and it's not trying to be playful, and you're just racing around a track and not around like an open world.
Yeah.
So you don't need to give the player custom control over what music they're hearing, because you, the developer, are curating the gameplay experience much more closely minute to minute.
Yeah, and it wouldn't really make sense tonally if you're playing like a drag racing game and you're turning on the radio, and I don't even know if this thing has a radio,
Right. And if you're going for pure simulation, then it doesn't make sense. I'm playing through the game and I saw the Epitaph station and I was like, I thought I remembered in the recesses of my brain, I'm like, I've seen that logo somewhere before. And I realized when I was researching for this episode why I've seen that before. So check this out. They have a techno station, they have a pop station, they have a punk and metal station, they have a hip hop station. When I'm playing the game, I was like, I know I like listening to that one punk station, but why can I never remember which one it is? Why are there two that sound so similar? Oh, I look up. Epitaph Records station is literally a real world record label. Epitaph Records, headquartered right here in Los Angeles, is a real world punk and metal alternative label. And they have pulled off a masterful marketing move where they have just put their own real world music with their own real world label and real world logo name in the game. In that way, they are trying to secure promotion for their artists and trying to sell more records because they're going to create people are going to look up that Epitaph Records station and they're going to find out it's a real record label. They're going to go to epitaphrecords.com and they're going to go to their D2C store and they're going to buy records, Epitaph Records.
Epitaph Records, and then there was more.
One. Yes, there's Hospital Records, which is a dance label. We've got 5 genre stations in Horizon's radio. We've got the techno station, a pop station, a punk and metal station, a hip hop station, and a classical station. And then there's 2 more stations, Epitaph Records and Hospital Records. And those are the 2 that are real world record labels with real world artists that are all signed to that record label. And if I was signed to that record label, I would think that that is a brilliant play.
Imagine if you see a vending machine in the game and it says Pepsi on it. Like, that's what we're talking about.
I don't know this, but I would bet that these labels gave them a cut on the sync licensing. They took a much lower fee for the license, or might have even done it totally gratis without any fee, just for the pure promotional value, because I imagine there's huge promotional value in those.
I mean, this is a big game and a bunch of people are listening to it.
Well, it's a big game, and it's a big game in which, as we said at the top of the show, music is in the forefront. Music is in the passenger seat of this game.
Hey, very nice. Like, how would you like your music to star in this game? I wondered how many studios reached out. I wonder if this is a common practice thing too. Is this game like breaking new ground, or has this been in the nature of the business for like a few years?
Well, let's bookmark this into the future of the audiophiles as we look into more games with licensed soundtrack. All right, time to rudely interrupt this great conversation.
Yes, we need to promote this channel.
Do the promo. Let's do the promo. Let's do the promo.
This is our 6th episode. Can you believe it?
The results are starting to show. We had our first short go even kind of viral and get a little bit of views. Thanks, algorithm.
Our eyes were glued to the statistics for like 2 whole days.
And I want that to happen again. And you, dear listener, are going to help us do that by hitting share. Open up that pod player right now, hit share, send this to somebody who likes video games or music, or even better, someone who likes video games and music.
And watch as many of our videos as your free time will let you. Give us a like, give us comments, give us subscribes, find us on Instagram, find us on YouTube. Enjoy all of our podcasts because they post every other Monday.
Right here in the podcast feed. So thanks for being a part of the Audiophiles. Thank you, Malik, for doing this with me.
Hey, thank you for doing this with me, bro. Back to the show. Before we go, I do want to talk about some favorites.
You want to talk about your favorite tracks?
Yeah, because I had a few favorites. All my favorites were off the pop station. The pop station was by far my favorite. I mean, I'm a big Porter Robinson fan, and when I was playing and that came up,
makes me smile every time.
Yeah.
What song is it?
It's one of the big hits too. They didn't pick a B-side, which I thought was clever.
That must have cost a lot.
The Porter Robinson Look at the Sky, and my head spun, and I was
such
like,
a good song.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, this is probably going to be up my alley for most of my gameplay. Right. And there was a Sad Alex song called New Heartbreak. It was cool. It was fun.
Aw, Sad Alex and New Heartbreak. Sad Alex sounds very sad. There's also a Dua Lipa song in this game. What song is that?
Oh, I could doodle. That one.
That one. Right. Okay. I think that we just barely cleared it so we don't have to license that. Every time they come up, it's worth every dollar, because when I'm playing this game and that Porter Robinson song comes on, I suddenly feel energized and excited. And I remember all my real world associations with that song. It puts me in that world and it makes me feel like I'm driving a supercar down the beach of Mexico.
You know, isn't it weird how the really hyper familiar songs kind of act like a palate cleanser?
But let's also remember that there's probably a decent amount of people out there for whom the music they're really familiar is everything on the Epitaph Records station. And when it comes to the pop station, they're like, what is that drivel?
I really hope that the Epitaph and Hospital Records have big fans, because the music off those were also really, really cool.
If you're really into EDM music, and I know that Hospital Records is an established name in the EDM scene, you are going to have a special experience when you're playing Forza.
I got to ask you, did you have any favorites?
There was also, oh gosh. Oh,
let me get the title for you for that.
Sunflower took me by the hour.
That would be Sunshine featuring the Knox.
Sunshine featuring the Knox.
Yeah, the Knox.
That's so cool that features the Knox because, one, obviously it's my name, haha, yes. But also they remixed one of my favorite Muna songs. Everything they do turns to gold. Speaking of shutting down the podcast, this has been the Audiophiles Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us for episode 7. This was really fun. And we're really happy to take a step back and getting into how the music gets in the game.
There's so much to explore. Many more episodes to come.
Join us next time.
This has been the Audiophiles Podcast.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We had a great time talking about this game, and we can't wait to talk about the next one.
The Audiophiles is a production of me, Alexander Knoxville.
And me, Malik Samor.
If you happen to miss it, go to our YouTube channel and check out our fantastic interview with Mr. Thomas Brunet, the composer of Chants of Sennar. If you can think of another video game composer that you think we should talk to, then throw that in the comments.
Tag them.
Message them. Send a letter to their house.
Anyway, bye-bye. Thanks for joining us.